Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elixir Food. And today we are going to be talking a deep dive into the folder structure of a Phoenix project. And we're going to be talking about integrating a live view into a Phoenix project and the similarities between live view and React. So, if you're coming from a React background, you're going to be saying that live view makes your work easier, but this time around, you don't have to include a JavaScript because, like, live view already integrates some JavaScript for you using in their modules and some functions. So Elixir, we all know that Elixir is about function. So Elixir is a functional programming language, meaning everything that is built on Elixir is built using functions. So today we are going to be diving into Phoenix, which is a front-end framework for Elixir. So let's start a new Phoenix project. So miss phs.new. So we're going to call this one code with IJ. So when integrating the Phoenix project, there's some directories that Phoenix help us to run. So you notice it has created so many folders for us, so many files, and it's asking us if we want to install dependencies. So what do we mean by dependencies? So in npm in Node.js, you already know that dependency is what makes a Node.js function properly, right? That's the same thing with Elixir or Phoenix. So dependencies as inbuilt libraries that helps Phoenix and help Elixir to achieve the goals that it wants you to help to achieve. For instance, now we have Cowboy, which help you to start your project. We have Phoenix LiveView that helps you to integrate Phoenix into your Elixir project. We have Phoenix, which is helping you to build the front end or the framework for Elixir. Then we have Phoenix Live Dashboard, which help you to integrate the dashboard aspect of your project. That means if you're a developer, you can see how your OS is running, the metrics, the telemetry of your project. So all these are built using these dependencies. So while we're waiting for it to run, we'll be right back. So what Elixir is doing for us now is running our mixdebs.get, which help us to install or integrate all these dependencies into our project. And we have running mixassets.setup. So what mixasset.setup does is that mixasset.setup help us to integrate our tailwind library or anything related to JavaScript. So it helps us to integrate all the JavaScript dependencies we are using. While mixdebs.compile, it compiles our code into modules and run the build folder for us. So we are waiting for all these things to run and to be configured, then we can continue talking about the folder structure and how Phoenix Live View looks like and what each of these folder means. Thank you, and please stay tuned, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more educative and enlightening videos about Elixir, about Phoenix, about coding in general. Please stay tuned. Thank you, and please share to your family and friends. So welcome back. So we're going to see the into code.ij. So when we see the into code.ij, you notice that there's some directories and some file it has built. So we're going to be explaining all this. But before that, let's do mix ecto dot create, so that we'll create our database. Yes. So mix ecto dot create. This is still running. It might take a while. So the database for code ij.repo has been created. So now that database has created, let's do code dot so that we can open our VS Code and dive into how this folder structure looks like. Before then, so we can now do IEX. So we're starting our project most time in a shell format. So why we start our project in a shell format is so that we can do debugging step while coding. But if we don't want to do debugging step and we just want to start the project, we don't have to do this IEX underscore mix. We just have to do mix PHS the server, and that will start our project. But now we're starting the project in a shell format. So it's downloading Tailwind, and if we go to Chrome, let's open our Chrome browser. Hey, our project is installed and we're not going to go dive into what this video is all about today. So if you notice, this is how it looks like. I think something happened with our network. So the tailwind did not install properly, so that's why the CSS looks like this. But we're not really diving into what the CSS looks like. So pardon me, but we might not be treating what happened to our tailwind or what our tailwind looks like that. So let's just dive into the code structure. So if you go to our folder now that's with Ideal, which is the main directory for this project, so we have a build. So Elixir always does a build for us. Even when we delete the build, once we're starting a new project, it builds the build for us, and the build will have dependency, ES build, it will have assets. So the build folder, if you're deploying our application, is mostly the build we're going to be deploying. So we have this asset folder. So the asset folder has CSS, which have our tailwind, button tailwind, and this file is for your main CSS. So it has told us that it's for our main CSS, and we have app.js. So our app.js is where we have our JavaScript configuration. Yeah, so we notice socket. So socket is WebSocket that help us to do real time in a Phoenix application. So we have socket, we have live socket from Phoenix LiveView that help us to do real time updates to the web page. So any changes we make real time, it will appear without us having to refresh the page. So we have our tailwind config.css. So our tailwind config.js, sorry, I said CSS, it's actually JS. So it contains our tailwind configuration code. So over here you can see add variant, miss PHS loading. All these are the configuration we have done for the various aspects of our tailwind and want to utilize. So we have this config file, which is our configuration file. So our config file is our configuration file. So if you come to config.ex, we see where it has this endpoint. So this does the render the error for us, and this is where all our configuration that help us to use the project stays in. So we have dev.es. So dev.es mostly is for our database configuration. If you see, our database name is Postgres, our username is Postgres, our password is Postgres, host name is localhost, and our database name is code with IJ. So I have this database plugin I've installed from this plugin extension I've installed for VS Code. So you can see I have different database here, and this is the database it's installed for this project. There is no table yet, only a schema migration file, but there is no table yet because we have not created anything into the database. So over here you can see we have all this configuration, live reload and everything. Then we have production.es that deals with where our production code will be. We have runtime that the ES that deals with system configuration of the application. And we also have the test.es that deals with us testing our application. Yes, Elixir also help you to build a test file. So all those dependencies we run when we said yes to the dependency, or if we do miss debs.get, all those dependency is still built into our folder structure. So we have Flocky, hero icon, Json, mint. So if we want to see all these dependencies, if we go to our miss.es file, over here dependencies, so this folder structure of all these dependencies, this is them here being installed in various versions. So our dependencies is being installed. So this lib is where our main code stays, our main application code. We can say is a short form for library, which contains our main code. So before we go there, we go to Privic. So Privic is where our repo, our migration code is. So we have our migration code here. We have our assets. So when we are bringing images to the system, it's over here in this Privic folder, under asset folder. We are going to place it. So you notice we already have one logo over here that is displayed in our application. And we have app.js. We also have app.js here. Yeah, so this is our test file. So in this our test file, we have the controller to test everything. So when you are creating any project, it creates, and you are using maybe a generator to create that project, it's going to immediately automatically also create a test file for you over here. So in support, we can see con.case that help us to test our connection. We have data.case that help us to test our database and our Ecto. So all these are where our text file is. We have formatter.ex that help us to format our work. So mix Phoenix LiveView formatter. We have mixlog. We have git ignore where you can, if you're doing a project, you can tell Git what to ignore. So when we put our project in GitHub, Git will ignore all these files. You won't see them on your GitHub. Even the build, you won't be able to see it on your GitHub because Git is going to ignore all those when doing configuration. So let's go to our main file, which is our library. Here we have code with ij and we have code with ij.web. So we're going to first start with code with ij, and over here you can see we have our application.es that help for the running of the application. So this is what starts and run the application. We have miller.ex where is our mail configuration. We have repo, yay, that help us to use the database, and we're using Postgres database. Why? That's why the adapter is showing to adapter.postgres. If you're using MySQL, it will be another different adapter. So over here, once we do a backend code, or we have created a context file, a schema file, or once we start sorry, I wanted to say interrupting. No, when we start interacting, yeah. So when we start interacting with the database, most of our code will be found over here. I hope I'm not too fast and you're able to grasp what I'm saying. In summary, what I'm saying is code with IJ contains the backend logic for your code. So that's where the backend logic for your schema file, your context file, or anything depending on the backend would create it here. So Elixir, Phoenix or Elixir and React already help you to structure your application in a way that you are able to make correction and know that, oh, my backend logic is over here. So code with web, we have components. So over component now in React, you will notice we also deal with components. So component is helping us to create things that are reusable. That's the same ideology when it comes to component over here. So we have this core component. So this core component help us to create model that we can reuse all over our project, help us to create flash input field, a customized input field. So all these places have code of various things it has helping us to create, even button. So it helps you to style it in a way that if you just do call it in a particular way, it will appear on your code. So there's a way you have to call this component. Even in React, you have to first import the component, then there's a structure or a way it expects you to call that component. So the same thing with Phoenix, we have also app.html.ex. So by default, this app.html.ex is where our code is. If you want to do your layout, maybe you're just building a simple one, not even just one page. No, SPA is a single page application, but you're just building a one page application and you don't need a lot of code, you don't need a lot of folder. You can come here and rewrite your code over here. So when we talk about root is what links this app to, this is what links our app. So without this root, our app will not be showing. So under layout, we have embedded template. So Elixir works it works, HTML in Phoenix or Elixir work as embedded template. So Elixir is going to be looking for the template based on the naming convention. So whenever you are building things, you have to be very, very, very critical when you're thinking about your name, because when we go into live you see how this name format works. But over here now you see there's this inside my controller. So controller is what helps Elixir to make your front end available for the web page to see. So we have page.html. So this embedded page.html, you can see there is a folder called page.html and there's a home directory. So if I remove all this code, so let me just take away all this code so you get to understand what I'm saying here. I just remove all this code and I just do a simple just gonna do a simple h1. We know h1 is a header tag, is the highest header tag. So I'm just gonna do a simple hello, welcome to learning Phoenix folder structure. So when I come over here to where I'm running this project, you see, echo hello, welcome to learning folder structure. And you might be wondering that, but we saw so many code, we saw the HTML, we saw various code. What Elixir does is that in this your page controller now let's go to the router and it will become more clear. So router is where that routes your file. This is where the page looks, this is what the code looks for in routing your file. So over here there's a page controller of home. So we're saying there's a page controller, that our guest is listening to a page controller. We have a page controller over here. So this render now is what helps the page controller to render this layout of page.html. So it's rendering home and it's putting the layout as false. If I put the layout as true, let's see what happens. So if I put the layout as true, it's going to be throwing some error because putting the layout as true, there's some configuration I needed to do. So skip the default app layout. So it has skipped the default app layout and the home page is often custom made. So it has skipped the default app layout and we now have our code over here that is using this embedded HTML page. So in this HTML page now, if we remove this file, it's going to throw an error and says this file does not exist. So over here it is now using this hex. So hex is embedded template, is what Elixir or Phoenix used to call your HTML or used to look up your HTML. So that is it. We have talked about controllers, we've talked about layout. So now we're going to be diving into Phoenix LiveView. So what does Phoenix LiveView does? Phoenix LiveView help you to integrate front end and back end in Elixir in a swift and sweet manner. What we mean swift and sweet, we're saying that Phoenix does not deal with controller, it only deals with three functionality: handle events, mount, and render. So render over here, if you notice here, we were saying render conduct. So yeah, Phoenix also deals with, Phoenix LiveView deals with render that help you to render your hex product. It deals with mount that help you to connect that socket, that helps you to take things from the socket and connect it to your web page. So it helps you to assign things from the socket or from the web, from your socket or from your section back into your front end aspect. And it deals with handle events. So handle events in Elixir Phoenix LiveView is just the same way you have functions. Yeah, it's just the same way you have function in JavaScript, where you have this PHS. So PHS click is what helps you to call and handle events. You can use PHS click, you can use PHS submit to submit a form. It's the same way in JavaScript you have on submit. So on submit helps you to submit your form. Click, is it on click? I think it's on click. Jesus. It's on click. So we have on click, we have on change. All these are event handlers in JavaScript that help you to call events or functions. I help you to render functions into your event and helps the front end to trigger this event. That's the same way in Phoenix LiveView. Now we have handle events that helps you to call functions you have defined in those handle events. By calling phs click, you are calling that function and you're calling the function name. You're telling the web page, go to look for a function called and do all the steps I say you should do in this function. So that's in the general sense, that's what you're doing. So that's the similarity between Phoenix LiveView and Phoenix LiveView and VR.js. So both of them are frameworks and they are both used to build SMA application. When we talk about SMA, we're talking about single page application. So a single page application is an application that renders various pages without you having to reload the page or without you having to have a lot of pages. So it deals with having a lot of templates, and each of these templates can act as a page, and the router goes to each of these templates or each of this page, render it without having to refresh the browser. So you are not using an a-click event over here, but you are using a socket. So in LiveView, it's live socket that does that real-time updates. So right now we're going to add Phoenix LiveView into our code without. So you see, that's the same thing we do. We're going to add Phoenix LiveView into our code without what? Yeah, without doing it from the folder structure. So we will not come here and say live or anything like that. We're going to call a command. So in Phoenix, there's generators. That's how cool. Like Phoenix is so cool. There's generators. So what generators help you to do is that generators help you to call things. It's a command line. So by writing this command, you tell the generator has various commands for various things they do. So by say miss phs low, I'll accept the miss archive. So this is what helps you to integrate Phoenix into your project. So now for us to call live, this is what we are dealing with. Yeah. So we're just going to copy this code from this generator. We're not changing anything. It's going to create. So what this code is going to do is going to create a live view for us. It's going to create an account context file that will contain all the functionality for us to do with our schema. It's going to create a schema called user, and the table name is going to be called users. The table is going to have a string of a name that is a string and age that is an integer. So let's do this command and see what it does. Alright, so you notice it created a new folder for us. So let's go to our code and see what it created for us. So it created a new folder called live. Yeah, so every live view code is always inside a folder called live. Then it created another folder for us called user.live that help us render all the front-end code we have here. So it help us render all our front-end code. So there is a form that helps us to add this user into the database. Now there's this index. So this index has mount. This is the mount we're talking about here. So the mount takes 3 arguments: a param, a section, and a socket. So we have this mount, and we are doing account.list user. So if you want to look at where this code is, we told you that our backend code is always in code with IJ and our front-end code is always in the web. So we can see that there is an account over here. So this account.ex now is not our context file. So if you can see in this context file, it says list users. That's repo.org for us to get user.id. So it's just the same way you have this context file in your React.js, and your context file you have this dispatch. Yes, we have this dispatch and action in your context file. That's the same way we have a context file now that help us talk to the database and do some functionality. So this is our schema code, and our schema is casting. It's casting this name.age and it's validating it for us. So we're not going to do a deep dive into this. Next time we want to talk about Ecto, we're going to be deeply diving into this. So yes, so we're going to add all this code into our router file. So we're adding all this code into our router file. Yeah, so we're adding all those code into our router file over here. So this is our router file over here, and when we do it like this, so if we go to the users, so let's go to the user and let's see what the code looks like. So we don't have to refresh our browser, we don't have to do anything. That's what the real time does for us. So if you just go to this route, users, what's happening? Okay, sorry, I did not start the project. I didn't start the project. So coming here, those users. Okay, so our project did not start there. So with that simple command, Phoenix has helped us to integrate LiveView, and it created a folder structure. So we said that anytime we use a mix or a generator to create any file into our Phoenix project, it also creates a test project for us. So if you can see, we have accounts.test. So it creates all these test folder for us and creates, so as it's creating the library, it's also creating a test folder for you to run phs.test to test your code. So we have to run migration. So you see listing users. Now we can do new user, and I can say Ijoma, and just say she's 25 years, and when we click save, so we see user created successfully. Then we have a list of user. So it's so cool that it has done all this code structure for us, and we didn't have to write a single line of code. All we just had to do was run a command, and voila, it's really nice. So we have edited Ijoma as a user, and are you sure? Yeah. So this is it, also using JavaScript over here. If you notice, this is also what we do in JavaScript when we are telling the window, when we are asking the window to do an alert for us. So it's using the window alert system. And when I say yes, it deletes the user for me. So thank you for staying tuned to Code with IJ. And once again, see you in the next video. And we hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day.